Me and you, with my hands lifted up, fill my empty cup. Me and you, me and you. My heart says yes to you. Me and you, me and you, with my hands lifted up. Please fill my empty cup. Me and you, my heart says yes to you. Between me and you, me and you, with my hands lifted up. Oh God, please fill my empty cup. Me and you, me and you. My heart says yes to you. My heart says yes. My heart says yes. My heart
Lisa,
yes.
Singing that magnificent song.
Can you help me say?
On this Friday, a day that the Lord has made, and in it we shall rejoice and be glad. I am extremely happy today because there's so many things going on, so many things that we need to address. And I'm hoping that we can have some callers to call in and let us know what they're thinking and what's on their mind. But today we want to talk about our children going back to school. And I'm very concerned about that because we have a young man that's going, well, we really have two. But Moses is, he's going into his adulthood, into college, his second year. But Joshua is still in high school. And we're trying to make up a good format for him because he really needs his parents. As never before, we find that the Lord has locked us down, locked us up, quarantined us for a reason and for a purpose. And that purpose is we need to get to know our family. We need to get to know our own children. And today, as other people are making the decision for us, saying that your children need to go back to school and this is what we're going to do. And from what I can understand, every county, every city is making their own rules and regulations about what they're going to do when they get our children back in school. Some schools have started, thought that they were okay to go back and they were going to abide by all the rules and regulations, and found out that the children were getting sick by the hundreds. So this is something we need to really think out, because a lot of you parents are taking that pilgrimage to take your child away from their home. And when they get away from home and they get sick, then you have to go back and pick them up again. So you need to think this thing out really well. And then I'm not understanding, because my child is going to be on a computer for 6 hours a day. I don't know how that's going to happen. So we need to work these things out now and discuss them before it's too late, before these rules are totally stamped into law and then you can't get out of it. So we all need to think about what's happening, think about what's going to happen, and think about what we want to do about it. It's not about nobody else making the decision about your child. You need to make the decision about your child, because one thing about it, if your child die, it's nobody but you going to the funeral and getting things ready. So let us think about, if I have to make the decision, let me be the one to make the decision. And sometimes you have to make a decision. I've heard a lot of parents say where the one child, where the one parent has to stay home and the other one has to work. But it's imperative that we work toward what is best for our children. We brought them in the world. We're obligated about what happens to them, and it's up to us to make the decisions. Children are excited. They want to see their friends. They're tired of being locked down. They want to have fun. They want to play games. But we have to be the parent, and we have to step forward and say, no, this is what we're going to do for your good. I'm going to start off. I want Jacob to cue up the first video for us, telling us the do's and don'ts, and why we need to make a decision, a permanent decision, because we know what's going on and we know the values. So we're going to look at this first video first.
Jamal is a boy who lives in a poor neighborhood. He has a friend named Kevin who lives in a wealthy neighborhood. All of Jamal's neighbors are African American, and all of Kevin's neighbors are white. Because Jamal's school district is mostly funded by property taxes, his school is not very well funded. His classrooms are overcrowded, his teachers are underpaid, and he doesn't have access to high-quality tutors or extracurricular activities. Kevin's school district is also funded by property taxes, so his school is very well funded. His classrooms are never crowded, his teachers are very well paid, and he has access to high-quality tutors and lots of extracurricular activities. Kevin and Jamal live only a few streets away from each other. So how come they're growing up in such different worlds with such different opportunities for success? The answer has to do with America's history of systemic racism. To understand it better, let's look at what life was like for Kevin and Jamal's grandparents. Decades after the Civil War, many government agencies started to draw maps dividing cities into sections that were either desirable or undesirable for investment. This practice was called redlining, and it usually blocked off entire Black neighborhoods from access to private and public investment. Banks and insurance companies used these maps for decades to deny Black people loans and other services based purely on race. Historically speaking, owning a home and getting a college education is the easiest way for an American family to build wealth. But when Jamal's grandparents wanted to buy a house, the banks refused because they lived in a neighborhood that was redlined. So Jamal's grandparents were not able to buy a home, and because colleges could prevent them from attending through legal segregation, their options for higher education were really scarce. Kevin's grandparents, on the other hand, got a low-interest loan to buy their first house and got accepted into a handful of top universities, which traditionally only accepted white students. This opened up a wealth of opportunities that they were able to pass on to their kids and grandkids. Even as late as the 1980s, an investigation into the Atlanta real estate market showed that banks were more willing to lend to low-income white families than to middle or upper-income African-American families. As a result, today, for every $100 of wealth held by a white family, Black families have $5.04. A 2017 study confirms that redlining is still affecting home values in major cities like Chicago today. This explains how Kevin and Jamal inherited vastly different circumstances. Unfortunately, the story doesn't end there. A big part of systemic racism is implicit bias. These are prejudices in society that people are not aware that they have. Let's go back to Kevin and Jamal. Against all odds, Jamal manages to be the only student from his high school to get accepted into a great university, the same one that Kevin and his high school friends are attending. But after Kevin and Jamal both graduate, Jamal notices that his resume isn't drawing as much interest as Kevin's, even though they graduated from the same program with the exact same GPA. Unfortunately for Jamal, studies show that resumes with white-sounding names get twice as many callbacks as identical resumes with Black-sounding names. Implicit bias is one of the reasons why the Black unemployment rate is twice the rate of white unemployment, even among college graduates today. You can see evidence of systemic racism in every area of life. The disparities in family wealth, incarceration rates, political representation, and education are all examples of systemic racism. Unfortunately, the biggest challenge with systemic racism is that there's no single person or entity responsible for it, which makes it very hard to solve. So what can you do? The first thing you can do is work towards becoming more aware of your own implicit biases. What are some prejudices that you might hold that you're not aware of? Second, let's acknowledge that the consequences of slavery and Jim Crow laws are still affecting access to opportunity today. As a result, we should support systemic changes that create more equal opportunities for everyone. Increasing public school funding and making it independent from property taxes would be a great start so that poor and wealthy districts can receive equal access to resources. Systemic problems require systemic solutions. Luckily, we're all part of the system, which means that we all have a role to play in making it better. Peace.
The whole problem of what's going on. We're out here now, and our children are protesting that Black Lives Matter. And the problem that I'm seeing is, if it matters, how are you going to make it matter in your life? The things that your grandparents did, the things that we did, were only the format. And now you have to stand on your own. So what are you going to do to make things better? We see here that because of the circumstances, there are a lot of children that are marching with their best friends, and your best friends are people from all different walks of life, but they don't live near you. They don't live in your neighborhood, and they don't go to your restaurants. They don't go. They don't. When you go out to socialize, there's you go to a local place. You don't go deep into their neighborhood, into their country clubs, and you don't go into some cities. They limit Black people coming into those cities, and they can be prejudiced towards you. So the first thing we have to know is that we need to come together on an equal basis, that we all are one, that we all are equal, and not your grandparent telling you you don't associate with those people, you don't mix with those people. You have to make up your mind that I want to be fair, because as it is now, the system is definitely not fair. Our children, they go to school. Now, for instance, your children are being asked to come back to school. Some are being demanded to come back, even though the teachers are saying, no, I've been there before. I know this is not going to work because these children can't sit all day. They're going to be fiddling around. They're going to be running around. They're not going to learn. And they didn't learn when they were at school. As old as I am, there's a whole lot of new things that I've been introduced to because I didn't even know our history like I should have known it. And our children, I have not been given a good, a substantial education, one that will stamp them in life forever. But they're being programmed to be cooks, and programmed to be demeanor positions, and programmed not to have the same thing and the equal things as if they are blessed to go to school with other races as other races. I remember even my child, when they did his phototype at school, they said he'd make a fine cook. Oh my God. Why you want to plant that in his mind? I remember seeing a movie one time how this young man was in a neighborhood where it prompted him to go to school with white children. The teacher asks, what do you want to be? And asked him, what do you want to be? And he says, I want to be a doctor. She said, oh no, you can't be a doctor. Not a doctor. You have to be a maintenance man, or you have to be a garbage man. It was terrible because you plant those things in a child's mind and they think I can achieve, but they can achieve. And our children have not achieved. If my child has not achieved all this time that they've been in school, they need to be home with me, because nobody can teach a Black child like a Black mama and a Black daddy. And you need some teaching time, and you need some time to teach them many trials of life. This is why our children are getting in trouble when they're being stopped by the police. The police is doing all kind of things and destroying the lives of our children that they built, killing them without any recourse, because we have not had the time to sit and tell them, even though you're going to school and even though you have some other friends of other ethnic backgrounds, you're still not equal to them. They don't see you as equal. And when they have influence over you, they take advantage of that. Not only are the police beating men and beating boys, they're beating women. Come on now. Anytime you can grab a young woman and beat her, something is wrong with that picture. And it's because you've been taught against that person. You've been, that they're not, there's no way in the world that I could take advantage of a little child, because I've been taught in my life that you respect all children. You treat them like children. And when you're taught against how to treat people, then you treat them like you've been taught. And I think most race people see us as animals. They see, especially the black race, as an animal. And it's demeaning. Even sometimes I've walked into positions where I go through a door to go into the bank or something. And if there's a Caucasian man before me, especially a young one, he'll just let the door flop in my face because I'm not anything to him. I'm not equal with him. But if there's another woman that he respects, especially one of his own race, he'll hold the door, no matter how long it takes that person to come through the door. I've been in line at stores to purchase, and they would go and call some other person up behind me and wait on them before me, because they don't see me as an intellectual equal person. And these are things we need to consider. Our children were not taught to have very much, if any, computer time. So now they're going to slam a computer in your kid's face and tell you, we're going to do e-learning now. How you going to do e-learning all this time? You didn't take turn to stop and teach me how to use the computer properly, or give me time to explore, or give me a computer I could take home. Oh yes, they've been giving computers to children before now. They've even given children computers in other lands, but our children didn't have access to them. And now they've been thrown in there. Our children, some of them don't even have internet. And without internet, what are you going to do? They're demanding the internet people send in internet for these computers. Now the internet people, if they send in internet, they already got an attitude. So what they're going to do about that? They're going to cut the internet off when they get ready. Kids should have did their homework between 9 to 3. And if they're up now, they're not on there for internet, and they're going to cut it off. Oh my God, we got a lot to consider, but we're not considering that. We're not taking advantage of that. Our children are being taught against other races. They've been taught against their own identity, because in the black race, we have more than just you're black. We have you're yellow, you're coconut, you're cream, you're this, you're that, and you're fat, you're skinny, and we have a lot of prejudice. And because of those prejudices, we need to deal with that at home. Children don't go to church like we were raised in church. When we were raised in church, we had the classes where they sat and they taught us by ages on how to identify with our own culture, how to identify with our own people, and we were raised totally different. And nowadays, children of our ethnic backgrounds don't even like each other. I don't want that person to be my friend. I don't want to do, when I go into a store, I don't even, as old as I am, I don't even want a person of my own race to wait on me, because I know that they are not going to give me a fair chance. Fair chance. That means a hookup. You ought to give your own people a hookup. One thing I can say about Spanish people, I've had a lot of Spanish people, friends. They look out for each other. They don't have to know each other, but they look out for each other. And we need to look out for our own. Our children, even in the neighborhood, some of them, they may not have the clothing they need, the shoes they need. They may not have the computers they need. They may not have a lot of things, but other races, they say, okay, we're going to step up to the plate, and we're going to provide this for them and provide that for them. Why would you have to give me a stamp card for my kid to carry around, a stamp card, when in fact there should be resources in the neighborhood or in the restaurants where they could go and they can eat and they can enjoy and they can have outstanding things that they can experience. But instead, you're teaching them how to be dependent totally on the government. The government will take care of you. The government will provide for you. And that's not what we want to get in our children. What we want to do is stop and teach them. And this is the opportunity God has given you. And I do not admire a parent that will pack their kid up and take them off in a time when the world has stopped. The world has stopped. You need to stop and get a hold of things in your home, in your family. Things are not as usual. You know, when we were coming up, we didn't have a lot of things. A lot of times we didn't have electric lights, or they cut them off. And we learned to use, they had little lamps, and we learned to use candles and flashlights. Our children have not experienced that. They need to experience that. Little becomes much when you put it in the master's hand. So we need to get together and we need to start letting our children experience things so that they'll know, I want better. We want better for them. They don't want better. We are their God. They don't need church. We are their God. If they need something, we provide. Because we say, well, I didn't have so-and-so when I was growing up. I didn't have shoes when I was growing up. And because you didn't have those things, you give your children too many shoes and too many clothes. And when our children go to school, they don't first think about, I need a 5-ring notebook. I need 9 pencils and 2 electronic pencils or whatever you got to have. They don't think about the stuff. Matter of fact, they don't even ask for the list that the school send home for them to pick up those articles. They are concerned about, I got to have Air Jordan gym shoes. I got to have Gucci pants, and I got to have the right shirts and the right caps and everything that they think about that will promote them to be the top dog in school. Oh man, that's a sharp dresser. It's not about dressing. There are children that come to school and they wear nothing but jeans and the same shirt every day. And they walk across that stage 4 years later with a degree. And when they come out with that degree, they're ready for life. Because when they're laying down on their beds in their rooms, what are they doing? They're getting educated. They're opening the books. They're reading. They're going to the library. They're seeking, how much can I learn? How much can I obtain? And here your child is, because you're providing for them. You don't want them to miss out on life. They're laying in the bed with their phone, and they have the top phone, so the phone will go anywhere or do anything they want it to do. But when they get tired, they get off and get on the games that we have provided for them. And when they get tired of that, I don't feel like doing homework, so I'm going to go outside. I'm going to kick some balls for a while. I'm going to go to this party. I'm going to sneak off at night. We're not helping them. We're not helping them. And then when they cease to get what they need to work with, because nobody's going to give it to you, you got to get it. Then they get out in the streets and they protest and they tell somebody, why don't you give me this, give me that? It was my endeavor when we started as the Evangelist Thelma Camper Ministries, that we would teach our young people to become entrepreneurs and that we would give them a head start. And there are many things, and I thank God, because God does not fail, that we've been able to help a lot of people get started in their own business. And it may be a small start, but if you keep working with it, little becomes much. And if it's God's will, as Pastor Mo would say, it's his will. God will provide. He'll make a way out of no way. But instead, we're trying to do it ourselves. Don't try to do it. And when you have children that are coming home to you, some of them have been to school. I have grandchildren, many of them, and they come home and they're dumber than when they left. And when they come home, they don't know how to even talk to older people. They don't know how to be cordial. They lack to know the very essence of what is important in life. They don't know how to meet people. I'm glad now that we can't shake hands. I'm glad now because I'm a kisser and a hugger that we can't kiss and hug because there's so many phony people. Phony. They don't even like you. And you can tell the difference when a person die. Everybody want to get in the casket and pull that body out and just kissing lipstick all over the body and everybody just hugging and kissing. But when you're alive, they can't even talk to you right. How many people go and bring grandma something that she really needs? How many people in this COVID-19 incarcerated, locked up period have called somebody and said, take my grandma a basket of fruit. Take my grandfather so-and-so. He needs razors. He needs towels. He needs something that he likes to do. He likes fishing. Take him this fishing book so he can browse through it. No, they don't do that. They think we still owe them. All the things we've done for our children, they think we still owe them. That's why you need to stop, drop, and roll, and let them know this is the time for you to regroup and learn who you are and whose you are. Because without God, you're nothing. You will fail. You'll be drifted like a ship without a sail. Our children have learned to grow up and they hate us because after a while, you go through cycles in life. You get to a cycle that you can't get over. You get to a cycle that grandma, grandpa, and mama and daddy can't help you get over. You should have learned those skills back here so that you're ready and you're equipped to handle it right here. Some of these young people can't even do anything around the house. I was amazed the other day when we had a leak in the sink, and my granddaughter, who's majoring in medicine, she says, I'm tired of this sink leaking. Not only did she put in brand new faucets, she put in lighted faucets. So when we old folks go in there and turn the water on, we know the water is on. We turn it off and the little light goes off. And I said, I'm extremely proud of you. And that's what our children need. They need us to sit back and tell them how proud we are of the little things they've learned. And because you've learned these things, I know you're going to be great. Because you've learned these things, I know you're going to keep seeking to learn more. So I am just, don't feel like anybody is supposed to do something for you. Because even in the times that I was raised and my parents came from slavery and my grandparents were in slavery, my parents taught us when we first came here to the city that you're in a black lined neighborhood, a place that they've set aside just for black folks. And during that time, the black people learned to work together. If somebody didn't have something, the other family came to their rescue. They took their children to church. They dressed them. They showed them how to dress. It's a doggone shame our boys are running around here and you can see their ass and something else running out of it. I hate for young people to come to my house, sit on my chairs, and all their pants and their skirts are so short. When they leave, they've messed up my chairs. You shouldn't have to wipe your chairs out when your family leave. You shouldn't have to tell your young people, pull your clothes down, pull your pants up. They should know those things. And if you learn to do those things now and your parents can't tell you about it, how are you going to get a job later on? How are you going to know how to dress? How are you going to know there's a difference? I remember when Joshua was in grammar school, for whatever reason, from 6th grade to 8th grade, he wanted to dress up every day. It was a little hardship on me. There's a lot of things I had to put in the cleaners because we go to church and we had to have it ready for him. But every day, and the teachers called us in, me and my husband, and said, you got to stop him. He can't wear church clothes to school. Not every day. And they were serious. They were intimidated by it. I love to see children dress up. I love to see a school where they wear uniforms because they're teaching them for the next phase in life. I remember going to school, even down to Jones Commercial. And because I was taking secretarial courses at the time, they had where you wear a little hat, you had to wear your gloves, you had your purse, you had your high heels, because they were preparing us for the next phase. And this is how we need to prepare our children. Prepare your children how to talk to someone. If you can't shake hands, you can't hug, you can't kiss, adopt something else from another culture. I love the way the Chinese bow down to each other. That's beautiful. Can we do that? No, because we don't feel that humble. Give me a bump. Give me a bump. If you could bow down, grandmother, I'm so happy to see you today. Or do a curtsy, something to let me know that you are totally humbled. We're not humble. Sarah loved her husband so much she called him Lord. Can you imagine that? Good morning, Lord. How are you today? So we need to teach ourselves. We have failed to do that. And because we keep on pushing our children. Don't you remember the latchkey kids? Children that had a key around their neck and had to come home and open up for themselves, eat for themselves, prepare for themselves. This is why we don't demand anything out of mothers, that they should come up to the par and do what they should do, because everybody's getting away with murder, getting away with doing what they want to do. Parents, because they're not living together, I'm going to send you to your dad's house this week. You come and stay with me next week. What kind of balance is that? And our schools have a habit, in case you don't know, because I do a lot of volunteering also, that they make your children write up the family unit. And so many of these children are so demeaned by the family unit until they don't even do the assignment, and some of them fail because they don't want to say, I don't have a full-time mother. I don't have a full-time father. I don't have a substantial family unit. I'm being raised by my grandparents. I'm adopted. We have so much, so much. Do you all remember just yesterday when they had something going on, especially in the Black neighborhoods? It was called Safe Passage. That's a doggone shame that you got to have a safe passage for your child to go from one corner to another corner. That's why God stopped the land. That's why God stopped everything, so that we could regroup. You ain't got no business having to have safe passage, police, assigned people at every corner to make sure your child get to school. And guess what? Children were still being kidnapped in white vans. I don't think a lot of people care what happened to their children. There are a lot of people that have insured their children. They rather have the insurance money than to have the child. It's time now to stop and see what the Lord is saying to us. The churches, and because I'm a prominent member of a church, we're not doing our duty. We can't do what we used to do. We can't go to church and have therapy, scream and holler and run the benches and jump on folks. We can't do that no more. So there should be other things that we do to relieve the pressure of the government on our children. You don't see a whole lot of other races tearing up neighborhoods and not rebuilding. If you're going to tear something up, build something back. I remember one of my sons, Fontaine. I don't care what you bought, Fontaine. He always tore it up, took it loose, but he always put it back together again. And because of that, I could tolerate the fact that he's going to tear that up because he wants to see what's inside, but he's going to put it back together again. Do we have a caller?
Yes, Minister Captain, really enjoying the show today. We have a caller from Mississippi. We have Pastor Lily Randall, and also we like to say God bless you to Nina Davis, She sent in a message that said, "Good afternoon, beautiful mother, woman of God. We love you, Nina." And here we go. Pastor Lily Randalls from Mississippi. Go ahead, caller.
Peace be unto the God.
Friend.
Peace be multiplied.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I thank God. And when you look back, we was raised with children. And everyone, amen, was raised up in the admonition of the Lord. Now, people are being, women, sisters, men, people, is being want to get rid of the children so they can go.
That's right.
That thing from, is that right? If we got to tune up in heaven, God can open it. But we have gone off to the water in ourselves. Come back and come marvelous. Come like the Lord is the word going to make it. Either one achieve whatever you have to go do it. So I just think it's some good point. Know what you got at the beginning. Tell our children how to do what they want to do. Mm-hmm. Then they just go and do it. School if they want to. And whatever. Thank the Lord. It's some good information. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. God bless. God bless.
Amen. Thank God for Pastor Randall all the way from Mississippi. We miss you. We miss you. We can't even get Monique now that you're gone. I keep calling her, but she's so busy. And that means you had a great influence on everyone. And just like you said, the parents are not doing what they should do. They're letting the children go wild, make their own decisions. And it's going to destroy the family unit. And we don't seem to realize that's our legacy. Once we destroy a generation, then we destroy our legacy. So it's not up to them. They don't know what they want. We have to tell them what they want. And look at some of the things that are happening. If you just listen to the news, some of these children have already started partying. They start partying, and the police is breaking up parties, and school hasn't started yet. Getting to know you, getting drunk with you. How much can you drink? Are you going to be the type that can hang out with our unit? So it's time now for us to open our eyes as parents. We're not looking at. You need to keep an eye on your child. Keep calling to find out who their friends are. What are they doing? What are they accomplishing? And if they're not accomplishing anything, you're wasting your money. Do we have? I think we have another video we're going to queue up that we want to play for you.
Yeah, you know what, Pastor Camper. Before we queue up the video, I want to tell you two quick stories. I've been working in the school system for years. I worked in a school. It had 802 students. 90% were African American, and I was in a cafeteria with my class, and there was a young man staring at me. It looked like he was about 11 years old. So I looked at him. I said, "Good morning, young man." He said, "Good morning, sir. I can't believe they hired a black man teacher." And I was like, he's like, wow. And so the student was excited that they hired a black male teacher. Mm-hmm. I was the only teacher in the entire school that was black. The other black men that were in the school were coaches or computer techs or janitors or security. But the student was amazed to see a black man as a teacher. And real quickly, I was teaching a gifted class of math, and there was 3 boys that the principal briefed me on. He said, "Look, these three are gonna be very disruptive, and do what you can. If you have to call security, call security. But we need for you to teach this class." So I went into the classroom, and these 3 men that were disruptive were young black men. So when I found out they were very aggressive, I had them introduce themselves. One said he played baseball. I said, "My son plays baseball." So I built a rapport with him. Then the other guy said, "I play basketball." And he said, "You should come and see me play today. We got a game at 4. I said, "After school, I'll be there." these 3 young men, I made them my assistants. I had them on the board, and I learned that that Black boys have to be educated differently than other people.
Yes.
And it's not that we're young and dumb and stupid. We're so aggressive and we have so much energy. Instead of sitting in a desk for 6 hours, I had those boys writing on the board, collecting papers, answering questions, and all 3 of them received an A for that class. And the principal was amazed because he targeted them as being disruptive and bad students. He wanted them to sit in the security office during the class. And this video that we're about to see, it coincides with what I just shared with you.
Favorite students. But when does this favoritism turn into bias? Hi guys, Lisette here for D News. Teachers are an important part of our learning and development. I still remember every single one of my elementary school teachers, the ones I thought were good as well as the ones I thought were not so good. But what did they think of me or you? How did that affect our learning? Well, a recent study published in the journal Economics of Education Review looked at data from thousands of students across the U.S. and their teachers to see where race and gender fall into the equation. In the study, different teachers were asked to rate the same 10th grade student and predict his or her highest level of educational attainment. The researchers found that predictions varied based on the gender and race of both the student and teacher. In general, the expectations of Black teachers for Black students were 30 to 40% higher than those held by non-Black teachers. In other words, they believed Black students would do far better. To illustrate, 37% of Black teachers, when asked about a Black student, let's call her Samantha, thought she would obtain a 4-year college degree. In contrast, only 28% of white teachers thought she would do so. Now, if she were a Samuel instead, this effect would be even greater. White male teachers in particular have very low expectations of Black boys. They don't believe they'll do as well. The problem is that what teachers believe has a serious impact on student outcomes. We know from this and other studies that expectations matter. In this particular study, the researchers found Black students who had a non-Black teacher in a specific subject in 10th grade were less likely to pursue that subject later in their schooling. But it's more than just subject area preferences. It influences how well students do in school and to some degree the quality of their education. In the infamous Pygmalion in the Classroom study from the 1960s, researchers Rosenthal and Jacobson conducted an experiment with elementary children in public school. At the beginning of the school year, the researchers gave all students an IQ test as a baseline. They then told teachers erroneously that a certain subset of those students would show an intellectual growth spurt over the course of that year. This was a lie. In fact, the students were chosen at random, but that suggestion to teachers had a measurable effect. By the end of the year, the students who were labeled as growth spurt students actually did perform better than the rest of their classmates. On average, they gained 3.8 IQ points more. And these differences were even greater for younger children. Looking at first grade students only, the difference was 15.4 IQ points. This suggests that there is a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy happening. Teachers who believe their students will do well are more likely to act in ways that will lead to that happening. Since the 60s, other studies have dug in to try to figure out what exactly teachers might be doing that leads to this bias. And it looks like it could be things like giving children they believe are smart more time to answer questions when called on, giving them more challenging questions, or recommending them for gifted and talented programs. Teacher expectations are powerful, so much so that today we largely consider it unethical to label students the way we did in the Pygmalion study. It wouldn't be right to knowingly put some students at a disadvantage, which is why labels like race and gender are so tricky in a classroom. These labels don't require a researcher. Teachers can automatically and involuntarily apply them to students. So it's especially important to grapple with and examine the expectations attached to them. For a deeper dive into race itself, what it really is and what it means, check out this episode on the science of racism. In terms of biology, race doesn't exist. Now, that's not to say race isn't real, though it's important to understand that race is a cultural construct, that humans created this and it has nothing to do with our biology. There are no distinct genetic boundaries for the groups commonly called races. Do you have an experience where you felt your teacher was biased against you or maybe favored you in some way? Share your thoughts in the comments and remember to subscribe so you never miss an episode of D News. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, Brother Jacob. That was some good news to learn. Can you talk for a few minutes, because there's somebody at my door?
Amen. Praise God. We have Pastor Randall on the line. And Pastor Randall, how did you feel about what you just heard about if a teacher believes in a particular student that the student does better? Do you agree with that? Amen. Pastor Randall. Yes, I can. Well, do you believe that a teacher can affect if a student does well or not?
Yes, you can. In the South, in my mother's time, in my days, just the teachers who that you learn. You didn't just go in a park with this woman $1,000 because children achieve. You got to work at home, and then you got a good teacher. See what she feels for her job. Don't see if that person achieve. You have to call it. You have to have to visit your home. That happened, but now they don't. They just get the check. Most of the time, these parents want to have babies, and then go on. But they don't realize. You said train them. When they get older, they want. So I believe they made it. But you just start right on it, and then the family woman work for her job. Besides.
Amen. And Sister Monisa, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, did you get a chance to see the video of about how a teacher can affect the progress of a student?
I did, and that's so true. Even in my own experience, I can remember in 5th grade, my teacher name was Miss Lewis, and I always felt like Miss Lewis didn't like me. And I think a lot of it had to do with, my background being a church girl, and I was always known as the church girl. And so there were certain things that I was not allowed to wear. Like I couldn't wear pants. So whenever I went to school, I was dressed like semi-casual, dressed up like I would go to church. So I always felt like she didn't like me for that reason. And no matter how I tried to perform well in class or assist in class, for some reason, this lady just did not like me. But in high school, I'll never forget my freshman, sophomore year, my geography teacher named Dr. Lombard made an example of me because of the way I dressed, and told everyone else, this is how you should dress when you come to school, because she looks professional. She looks like she's here to learn. So it had a dual effect. And then, coming from being an educator myself, working with 5th and 6th graders, and teachers do talks amongst themselves, and they're always, if you're new to the staff, they're really quick about telling you who are the bad ones, who's the good ones, who's the smart ones, who's this and who's that. And if you're the type of instructor where you allow those things to infiltrate you, when you go into the classroom, you're going to respond just how people have told you who is who and what is what. So a lot of times I had to find myself diminishing those stereotypes that teachers put on certain students, because when you treat a student a certain way, they respond to you in that manner. But when you tend to do the opposite, you'll find that you're more successful with that student. And every student has to be approached differently. Maybe this student couldn't perform for this particular instructor because of the way the instructor handled this particular student. So A lot of times, you know, it's even though it's hard to imagine because we tend to think that our teachers or our instructors are like our superheroes. Well, a lot of them are not. You know, some unfortunately are there to collect a check, and they don't really care if your child learns or not. So regardless to what school district they're in, or how much funding a school is getting, it's still up to that parent to educate that child from home. And then from home, they're able to perform in various places, but we still have a responsibility to educate our children.
You know what? I agree with you 100%. And I also been working in the school system for a long time. And I was reading a study recently. They started school in certain states, and they were looking for substitute teachers. And I'm like, wow, this is interesting. So I went on to look into the article, and it said that the teachers are looking for substitute teachers, but what they do is they make notes about each child. So here it is, an unbiased outside person comes into a school system, and like you were saying, well, when they had the regular school, they'll sit in the lounge and talk about children. Now they have files. What they say, you know what? Darnell is a troublemaker. Susan is so beautiful. She's going to be your helper. So they plant these seeds in the minds of the new teachers, and you're absolutely correct. It definitely does affect them on how they teach the children.
Mm-hmm. You know, I'll never forget when I was teaching over on the east side at Schmidt Elementary School, and there was one little girl that was known for being like a pest. She wasn't the smartest. She didn't come from a very good family background, and you know, she wasn't dressed the best, but they had so many negative stereotypes on this girl. And when I went in to teach in the classroom, before I could even think about what I was told, my mind said, just sit and observe. And I sat and I observed. And because I'm from a very spiritual background, I saw those children from a whole different perspective. And that girl who, you know, everyone pretty much had just dismissed as, oh, she can't learn, God gave me a different approach for that young lady. And one day, we didn't have enough books as is. And one day I didn't get my book for the day to teach my kids. And so the Spirit gave me to have each one of them to write a letter to themselves saying who they are. And I pulled out a mirror and I said, after you're done writing your letter, I want you to come and stand in front of this mirror and read your letter. And that young lady, she got up and she could not read her letter to herself. And so I pulled over to the side and said, what's wrong? Why aren't you reading your letter? She said, because before you came, there were multiple times I wanted to kill myself. So I can't talk to myself. So, and I actually got in trouble for that assignment because my supervisor came in towards the end of class and saw the exercise that we were doing and said that I couldn't do that. And that was one reason why I kind of turned from wanting to work in the school system, because they really don't allow teachers to teach the way that they desire to teach. There's always a sense of conformity. You have to conform to their system, which is really not geared towards teaching our children at all. But yeah, you know, we just have to really be careful as educators, and not only educators, but leaders as well, in terms of how we perceive certain individuals based on someone else's opinion of that particular person.
You know what? And that was an awesome statement that you made. And real quickly, I would like to share with Valma Camper Ministries.
Upstairs.
I was a part of teaching a class which was a gifted math class, and there were like 5 black children, and there were like 25 basically white, Hispanic, and Asian children. And the 5 children that were the black children were all low income, and their parents put them on some type of program that they stated the low income, and they were getting $15,000 for every black kid that was in this particular program. They were basically funding this special gifted math program. So when I was teaching the class, the work was very advanced, and the 5 black kids couldn't keep up, or they weren't keeping up. So I was like, man, I got to find a way to teach this class so I can help. And I called it My People, and be beneficial for the whole class. So what I said, you know what? Because when I was passing out the homework, the Asians, whites, and Hispanic kids would knock the homework out real quick. They would knock the assignments out real quick. And the 5 black kids like, I don't get it. I don't get it. So what I did was, instead of passing out the work, I kept all the work myself. And I went, okay, we're going to do problem number 1. I wrote it on the board, and then everybody benefit from it. And the 5 students like, I get it. I had students going to the board. The principal found out the success of that particular class, and he reprimanded me and said, don't teach it like that. He said, those who don't get it, they're going to have to just get left behind, because we want this class to continue to accelerate. Don't slow the class down for everyone. Now, between the language of that, he was saying, forget these niggas. They're funding this because of their ignorance and their parents, and we want to keep benefiting the white, Hispanic, and Asian children. So, all right. So this one black student came to me and said, Mr. Israel, thank you, because I was acting up in class because I didn't understand this stuff. So that was just one of the testimonies that I had. Pastor Camp, are you ready? Hey, Pastor Lily Randall from Mississippi said, all right, God bless.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've had a successful program today, and we do hope that you will tune in on Wednesday of next week. And until then, thank you all for being with us. And we're going out now, and Monisa's singing Me and You.
Before we go out on that, I want to, for those who are new at this, real quickly, Monisa, can you give us background of this song, Me and You?
Sure. This song was written during the time that I was diagnosed with colon cancer. And it's actually a prayer that that I had after I received the diagnosis. And during this prayer, I asked God why, and God said, why not? And so from that, I developed a yes. And I promised God, I said, well, Lord, if this is my fate, if you heal me, whether it be through death or life, I accept your will. And in turn, I will do what it is that you asked me to do. So this song was birthed from that conversation that I had with God during that time. And as a result of my obedience to the yes, God healed me of cancer. Now, that song, I had been cancer free for 3 years. Now it's been a total of a little over 10 years now.
All right. Me and You.
All right. And God bless you. Thank you for that. Here we go.
With my hands, oh God, please fill my empty cup. Me and You, me and You. My heart says yes to You. My heart says